Hello and very warm welcome at Amish Cycle 5858. I am Amish Cycle. Following news have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian news channels and the news agencies. So please, let's go to the headlines.
Disney Plus, most watched, most trusted. Now on Disney Plus every night. Tonight, the breaking news just as we come out, a confirmed tornado touching down, severe storms hitting as millions begin traveling for the holiday. Tonight, the images coming in here, that tornado touching down outside Houston. Many homes damaged, trees down tonight, severe storms across multiple states now on the move. Into the Ohio Valley next and then the Northeast. And tonight, we're now watching a second major storm system set to hit right after Thanksgiving, just as millions travel back. So Ginger Z is standing by with the forecast. Also breaking tonight, a federal judge tossing out both criminal cases against two of President Trump's biggest political foes. The cases against former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James, both thrown out, and the reason why. Tonight, in an extraordinary move, the Pentagon now threatening to court-martial Senator and retired astronaut Mark Kelly after he appeared in that video telling American troops they are allowed to refuse illegal orders. President Trump accusing Kelly of, quote, seditious behavior, punishable by death. Tonight she was on the run, cutting off her ankle monitor, the young woman who years ago was found guilty of stabbing her classmate 19 times in the woods. Late today, new body camera video just released showing the arrest of the Slender Man attacker, where she was found. Tonight, the cause of death now revealed after that 18-year-old girl's body was carried up a Carnival cruise ship. But authorities have now revealed about her death. With holiday shopping here, the brazen thieves tonight not only stealing off of front porches, but this video tonight going up to a FedEx delivery person and taking the package out of their hands. Authorities tonight saying this is sophisticated. They know the electronics being delivered, and they have the addresses where they're going to. The war in Ukraine tonight, the peace talks, the Thanksgiving deadline, what President Trump is now saying tonight, and what President Zelensky has signaled. Tonight, new heartbreak for the Kennedy family. Caroline Kennedy's daughter, JFK's granddaughter, Tatiana Schlossberg, revealing she is dying from cancer. Tonight, the message, what she has written from that young mother and wife, and why she says she always wanted to protect her mother, Caroline, from more pain. The tributes tonight to legendary singer Jimmy Cliff. How fans are remembering him. And America Strong tonight, the new baby, just in time for Thanksgiving. This might just be one of the cutest babies you have ever seen. From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is...
So, what should the White House do about the war in Ukraine and the growing threat from Venezuela? Here to weigh in is former White House National Security Council Chief of Staff, Alex Gray. Alex, great to have you on. We had a great discussion this weekend. I'm so excited to have this one as well. So, there's a lot of senators, there's a lot of Washington insiders, even probably defense contract consultants, encouraging Zelensky not to take the wants. I just want to note that 1.5 million boys have died between Russia and Ukraine. Why would anyone encourage Zelensky not to take this deal?
Rachel, you're 100% right. And if anyone's encouraging either party not to try and find a solution, they're being reckless. And frankly, they don't know what time it is in American foreign policy and really the direction of the globe. President Trump is trying to deliver peace deals for the United States in disparate conflicts all over the world because he's focused on our core interests. That's rebuilding our economic strength at home. That's making the rising generation of Americans feel like they have some skin in the game here at home economically. It's about securing our hemisphere from drugs coming in that are supported by dictators like Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela. President Trump has his priorities right. This isn't 1998. We have to focus on where the conflicts are that most affect Americans here at home.
Yeah, that's the Don Road doctrine. I will say before we move on to Venezuela, again, these boys are dying, these Ukrainian and Russian boys. And President Trump has had quite a heart for them. He said it doesn't matter where they're from, they're human beings, and they're dying by drones, almost like a video game. It's it's a meat grinder. It's absolutely abhorrent. It's a total carnage. So hopefully people will come to their senses and end this war right away. Meanwhile, I want to move to Venezuela. It looks like we're seeing some encouraging signs, but are we seeing encouraging signs that Maduro will actually step away, that he'll take a deal, maybe take some money and head off to, I don't know, Russia? What would that look like? What are you seeing? Does it look like it might happen soon?
Well, I think this is the president's peace through strength approach playing out in real time, and we're watching these daily fluctuations. But what Maduro is looking at is the might of the United States Navy right off his coast. And when he's making decisions about the future of himself, his family, and his regime, he's not taking his eye off of that carrier strike group, the amphibious ready group that's right off the coast. And so as he's thinking about what's President Trump going to do, one of his brilliant strategies as commander-in-chief has always been that he doesn't want his opponents to know what he might do. And that wild card factor is keeping Maduro, and it's keeping numerous other dictators all over the world up at night because they don't know what President Trump has up his sleeve. And so Maduro's thinking, should I negotiate? Should I take that phone call? Or should I hunker down? And I think right now the strategy's working, and Maduro's thinking, I need to talk to President Trump and see if I can work out a deal.
Let's hope that's the case. Let's talk about President Trump's brilliant strategy, because one of them is figuring out who our true enemy is. A lot of people really focused on Russia, bad actors indeed, but the real enemy is China. Can you explain to our viewers what that connection is between Venezuela and the Chinese who basically infiltrated our hemisphere?
Rachel, it's an incredibly important point. And while we've had presidents focused on everything but the Chinese threat for the last 25 years, launching endless wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, the Chinese have come into our hemisphere. They're sending troops to train in our hemisphere with leftist regimes like in Brazil. They're propping up dictators in places like Nicaragua, in Cuba. They're doing everything they can to undermine the hemisphere that has traditionally been the core security interest of the United States. And President Trump is always, going back to his first term, he has always had his eye on China as our long-term geostrategic threat. And I think what you're seeing here is a really important strategic reshuffling of priorities, where President Trump is saying, Russia's certainly an adversary. It's a medium-term threat. Russia has a lot of problems. It will not be our long-term rival in this century. That's China. And he's adjusting us to deal with that threat today.
No question about it. Venezuela is the gateway into the Americas for the Chinese, and it is their main place of operation. So, Alex Gray, always great to have you on. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Ukraine's president calls it a critical moment. European leaders say their momentum in talks on ending Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The so-called 28-point plan has been criticized for heavily favoring Russia and forcing Ukraine to give up territory to the aggressor. A counter-proposal makes Ukraine's sovereignty central to any deal, is already that destructive and unacceptable. Redmond Shannon reports on the flurry of talks and whether it's progress or posturing.
European leaders in Angola for a summit with their with Ukraine very much on their minds. There is a new momentum in peace negotiations, echoing American positivity after Sunday's U.S.-Ukraine talk.
We had
the transatlantic consensus, a contrast from last week when Ukraine and its European allies balked at a US-backed 28-point peace plan, a document reportedly with heavy Russian input. It proposed that Ukraine give up the remaining parts of the Donbas region that it has controlled throughout the war. Now a European-backed counterplan has proposed changes, reportedly including that territory negotiations only begin after there is a ceasefire along current battle lines, that Ukraine have a higher cap on its future military personnel at 800,000, and that there be no outright ban on Ukraine joining NATO. For now, It also proposes that Ukraine get NATO-style security guarantees from the US. A Kremlin advisor said the proposal is not acceptable.
Right now, we are at a critical moment.
Addressing the parliament of NATO member Sweden, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky stressed his red lines remain too.
That borders cannot be changed by force. That war criminals must not escape justice. And that the aggressor must pay fully for the war he started.
There may be agreements on some points, but on the key issues of territory and security, Ukraine and Russia are still far apart. Leaders from Ukraine's allies, including Canada, are set to meet virtually on Tuesday to discuss their next steps. Donna?
Redmond Shannon in London, thank you. Alberta's government is not giving up on its push for a new pipeline to the coast of British Columbia. There are reports some kind of preliminary plan will be announced this week between the federal government and Alberta. Prime Minister Mark Carney has said he's open to the idea of a pipeline, but BC's premier most certainly is not, and no private company has come forward yet saying it wants to build one. Mackenzie Gray has a reality check on where things stand.
The smiles between Ottawa and Alberta are likely to be even bigger this week, according to the Premier.
We've been going back and forth almost daily for probably the better part of the last 2 weeks, and I really hope that we will have an agreement ready and available to be released soon.
Soon is expected to be
Russia launches a wave of missile and drone attacks on Kiev, killing at least 6 people amid further diplomatic efforts to end the conflict. While as the daily strikes continue, Moscow and Washington are holding talks in Abu Dhabi. Zelensky told Starmer he sees many prospects for peace. The Prime Minister will host a virtual meeting in Ukraine's European allies after updating MPs in the Commons. Shortly will bring you that statement live later this evening. Also to come, Father Ted created Kremlin have been cleared of harassing transgender activists but found guilty of criminal damage to their family. Implications for a year to Ofcom calls for better online protection for women and girls, particularly sports stars. And available to the highest bidder how the Trump administration is following through on its campaign pledge on oil and gas, despite environmental concerns. Very good afternoon to you. We start with war in Ukraine.
Only on ABC Listen.
Pauline Hanson kicked out of Parliament for 7 sitting days for her burqa stunt. Inquest hears how serious flaws in the mental health system contributed to the deadly shopping centre attack. The big clean-up with South East Queensland's supercell storms labelled an insurance catastrophe. And a deal to transform Australia's gig economy, DoorDash and Uber Eats drivers could be about to secure minimum pay. Welcome to ABC News, I'm Joe O'Brien. Pauline Hanson has been censured and banned from the Senate for wearing a burqa into the chamber and refusing to remove it. The first senator in more than 45 years to cop a 7-day suspension. The One Nation leader is unbothered, focusing instead on boosting her party's ranks. Here's National Affairs correspondent Jane Norman.
Censured and sensationally suspended by the Senate, but true to form, Pauline Hanson won't be silenced.
I'm censured. Doesn't really worry me. No.
The defiant One Nation leader fronting the media.
I stand my ground on what I believe in.
Moments after her Senate reprimand. Labor, the Greens and lone Liberal Andrew McLaughlin voting to censure the senator.
At least some of us in this chamber want to hold Senator Hanson to account.
And ban her from the chamber for an unprecedented 7 sitting days.
The people will judge Hanson.
Over this stunt late yesterday. Pauline Hanson walking into the chamber wearing a burqa, shutting down the Senate for 90 minutes.
Senator Hanson has been parading prejudice as protest for decades.
More storms on the move this
Headline news this hour. Thailand deploying an aircraft carrier and flotillas to deliver aid to its flood-ravaged south, where torrential rains intensified its worst flood in more than a decade. The Royal Thai Navy is sending relief supplies and medical teams to regions with water levels as high as 2 meters. At least 13 people have been killed and close to 2 million affected. Neighboring Malaysia also grappling with floods across 8 states. More than 20,000 people have been evacuated from border towns after overnight floods swamped homes and cut off roads. Taiwan stressing that a return to China is not an option after the Chinese president pressed sovereignty claims over the island in a call with his US counterpart. Xi Jinping told Donald Trump that Taiwan's reunification at the end of the Second World War was integral to Beijing. Taiwan's democratically elected government has strongly rejected China's stance.
中华民国台湾是一个完完全全的主权独立的国家，台湾是世界的台湾。台湾在区域安全以及科技经济发展上面，对世界是至为重要的。所以维持现状也是世界现在大家共同注意的一个发展。
The Trump administration is terminating the temporary protected status as a nation granted to some 4,000 Myanmar nationals in the U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem announced the decision, saying a review of current conditions in Myanmar no longer justified its status. She cited the planned elections and the end of Myanmar's state of emergency as evidence of an improving situation. The order is expected to come into effect in 60 days. And ahead next hour, East Asia Tonight. Ottilie Edwards is here to tell us what we can expect.
Thanks, Paul. After back-to-back calls with China and Japan, is President Trump now playing middleman amid rising tensions over Taiwan? And in Central America, the Taiwan-China divide takes center stage on campaign trails as Honduras heads to the polls. Some candidates openly pledge to restore ties with Taipei. And orbiting Earth, a spacecraft laden with supplies heads towards China's Tiangong station. It also serves as a replacement return vessel for its astronauts. Join me, Ottilie Edwards, on East Asia Tonight, less than an hour from now, right here on CNA.
Africa News. The news.
Tanzania has cancelled Independence Day celebrations next month after calls for protest over mass killings during recent contested polls. The funds meant for the event on December 9th will instead be spent on rebuilding infrastructure damage in last month's election unrest, according to Prime Minister Mwigulu. This announcement comes as the opposition and others have been calling for people to gather on Independence Day to protest the killings that took place after the disputed general election. President Samia Suluhu Hassan won the poll with 98% of the vote, but opposition parties rejected the results as completely fabricated and not genuine. Hassan's main rivals were also either jailed or disqualified. Thousands of people took to the streets to denounce the election. Tanzanian authorities cracked down on protesters in a move rights groups denounced as violent and repressive. The opposition believes hundreds of people were killed during the protests. The government has yet to give a death toll and has set up a commission of inquiry, but opposition parties have expressed concern over the independence of this body. Chemba on Monday also called for Tanzanians to avoid violence and engage in political dialogue.
Security chiefs have met with President Bola Tinubu as the kidnapping of hundreds of school children continues to rile public opinion in the country. Nigeria's army chief said work to rescue the victims was continuing.
Presently, we are receiving very positive news from that Kwara State, where the entire 38 people that were abducted have been united with their families. And progress is also made from Niger State, whereby we have about 51 of those students that are now united with their families.
300 children and 12 teachers were abducted by gunmen during an attack on a Catholic school in Niger State. 50 have since escaped.
For Kebbi State, efforts are also yielding positive results. Progress is being made substantially in that aspect. And all security forces are still deployed there, cordon of the whole general area, whereby we expect that we'll have some also news from that general area.
The kidnappings are happening amid US President Donald Trump's claims of targeted killings against Christians in the West African country.
The United States Secretary of Homeland Security said the federal government is planning to evaluate temporary protected status for people from Somalia. The status is a legal safeguard against deportation for immigrants from certain countries.
Well, TPS is a program that was always meant to be temporary. It's a program that is put in place, and I believe for Somalia over 30 years ago, and will need to be evaluated to make sure that it comes and is always implemented in the process for which it was intended. So that's something that will go forward, and I know that the President wants to bring integrity to our programs and make sure that they're applied appropriately to the individuals and to the countries which they're supposed to benefit.
This announcement.
Thank you for watching Amish Shakil 5858. I am Amish Shakil. I hope you will visit again. Have a good life. Bye-bye.